Right, this is a discussion, reflection on how do you become an environmentalist. Um, if you could look back in some of those videos that I've done before, you can find out a lot about my history and my upbringing. And no, I wasn't brought up in a teepee, and I didn't go on a war party or any of that. Those are all stereotypes, you know, and you got to get out of that. I didn't have bad experiences in the going to church on Sundays. I felt like my dad had some bad experiences because it was a racial thing. But I won't go into that because that's his story. And he's gone now, and so it's time to let that go. But environmental issues, I started getting involved in environmental issues. I think, well, clearly the Bighorn River case, and realizing, you know, the government can come and take something away or give it to somebody else. And so I started thinking about the environmental issues, and at the time I was working for an oil company, and so the struggle was, I've had that struggle before. I worked in the lumber industry as a sawyer, not a sawyer, I debarked. I was a debarker operator, and I just couldn't take, you know, day after day all these trees coming in, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. So maybe that's when I became an environmentalist. Needless to say, environmentalism is a little different than just walking in the forest. It's actually trying to take the next step in protecting the forest. When I was a fireman in the Forest Service, I went to fight fires. I went to protect the forests. So maybe that's when I became an environmentalist. Maybe it's when, you know, my dad took me out hunting, you know, and we were supposed to look at the forest as not wilderness, that was home, and it was home to many animals. And there was a lot of wisdom in what he said so simply, and probably he didn't even understand what he was saying to me as I understand it now. But going out hunting with your father and discussing wildlife management is, you know, that's what it's about when you go hunting. It's not about drinking beer, and it's not about standing around the forest fighting, or around the fire in the forest. You know, it's more about, you know, drinking that cup of coffee in the morning and, you know, understanding, you know, this isn't where you live every day, this is where you visit, you know. So maybe when I was a young guy and my dad took me out and we were camping, maybe I understood it as, that's where I became an environmentalist, when I looked at the forest as home to others. Needless to say, there's a lot of times where I can look and I can see that I'm more in love with the forest than I am with others, human beings. And that's a sad place, I think. But once we as human beings began to understand each other's identity and privacy of identity, you know, we'll quit labeling people as this is a woman of such and such descendancy and so on. And once we start looking at people as their input into the tribe, into the people, into the success of the people, then, at that moment, we will start to really become, an entity, working in outer space, universe, as protecting our environment. That's where it starts. We so often hear the elders talk about earth, wind, fire, and water, and yet we just don't even see those things. We go swimming and we recreate. We take the fish from the river. Do we give thanks to that river? Do we give thanks to the families of those fish? These are things that we can do simply in our life and become environmentalists. Once we realize that we are the environment, we're part of that environment, we're not apart from it, just viewing the environment. And that's where we need to start directing our science projects and our environmental studies, is to realize that to study the river, we need to go and stand with the river. We can't just put our data collecting materials, our data collecting tools in the river and then walk away. We need to go and look at it too. Suggesting, for schools to start trying to get the kids, the young students to, go down and take data, collect data from the river, classes, understanding the river and collecting the data personally, gives our education a voice in the environmental future of our planet. So this was just a short talk I wanted to say. The students are, young professionals going towards the future, and that we're looking for how do we sustain environmental ed? Well, you need to keep getting outside and recognize the changes and see what climate change has done to our planet. So I encourage you as educators to get outside. Project Indigenous is always hands-on outside education. And have a good day.